back to This Week in Comics. This week I picked up 3 books that I wanted to talk about, and a 4th book that I wanted to cover in another video. The 3 books were Destro #1, written by Dan Waters, art by Andre Brisson; Uncanny Valley #3, written by Tony Fleeks, art by Dave Wachter; and Ultimate Spider-Man #6, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Cicchetto. And the other book that I wanted to talk about, which I will do in another video, is Spawn #354, and I just wanted to cover what's going on with the Spawn books. Destro #1. This book is a kind of continuation of the Cobra Commander book, which came out recently in a limited series, 5 issues. That book ended with Cobra Commander joining Destro and Mars, which is Destro's clandestine organization of mercenaries. And he gave some energon to Destro to power his bats, which are Battle Android Trooper. So it was a pretty good conclusion to the Cobra Commander book, and it really leads in well to this book. In this book, we see Destro overturn a small nation known as Darklovia, and he becomes the ruler of that nation, but he puts in a sort of puppet. We see Cobra Commander in the issue for a short bit, and he's arguing with Destro about his decision to overthrow this nation. And they're talking about the bats, and that there is an issue with them, and that they're targeting pretty much everybody they see that's human. So they need to figure that out before they are put into the field alongside soldiers. Also, we're introduced to a new character, which might be a love interest for Destro, or perhaps like a mole in the works, we'll see, who is Astoria Carlton Ritz. I did some research on the character, and she is actually a character from the Transformers universe, the Gen 1. She had a fling with a Transformer, which is kind of weird. But it's just interesting to see kind of the melding taking place with these books of the G.I. Joe universe and the Transformers universe into this new Energon universe. And so this is a bit of that. The other thing is, after introduced to all these characters, we're also given a little bit of backstory to Destro. He goes to this sort of family tomb of sorts that has a bunch of statues of his family, and he's talking to the statues, kind of giving us the impression that he's crazy, although there might be something else at play there too. We'll see. And at the end of it, he is attacked while throwing an arms expo by another arms group who didn't attend the arms expo, and he saves Astoria from a bomb that's falling, which ends up being a dud, and it ends with him basically saying we're at war. So it was a really fun story, and I haven't read any G.I. Joe stuff prior to this, so it's really fun to be able to learn about all this in the process. Like, I'm doing some light research on the side, like I did with the Astoria thing, and I really enjoy that too. That's something I have a lot of fun with. The art is pretty great in this issue, and the writing was really good. It doesn't waste its time, and it does a really good job building up the characters as well as creating interesting situations for them to be dealing with. I really can't find anything wrong with this book. So, and I'm generally pretty critical. So I really do suggest people pick it up and kind of start taking notice of this new stuff that Skybound has going on with these books. Uncanny Valley. So #3 came out this week, but in order to not dive too much into that and kind of just go over the story so far, since I haven't talked about it up to this point, I just kind of wanted to do that. The story is a great concept. It's kind of like Roger Rabbit cartoons alive in the real world, and just a different story approach in that it's not a detective and a rabbit. It's a kid. He's a 12-year-old named Oliver, and he's lives alone with his mom, and his dad is a cartoon. We haven't seen his dad yet, but that's very much implied. So far, he has been hunted down by some dark cartoons who are trying to kidnap him and take him to something. Although at the end of this issue, it seems like where they're trying to take him is the same place where his grandpa, who appears to save him from the kidnappers, is trying to take him. And his grandpa is like a Yosemite Sam, pretty much. So it's pretty darn interesting. The mom has been out of the picture, not in the way that she's doesn't care or anything, but she got in the fight with some of the dark cartoons. The grandpa saved him, and now they're separated. She's trying her best to get back to the son. And yeah, it's pretty darn good story. It's ended on good cliffhangers every week. The art is pretty good. I really do like the mixing of styles where it's cartoons with kind of the more realist art. That is a really fun concept. I always like that, whether in film, cartoon, or television, or in comic books. I think that's an awesome idea. So it's fun to see that here. I'm kind of iffy about this story though, and that's just that it's dealing with the concept of childhood and a little bit of parental abandonment, and something that I've noticed a lot about recent comics that have come out. There's another comic which I'll cover next week that's coming out, the 19th issue or 20th issue of it. It's called Rogue Sun, and it's that there are these comics which are dealing with this whole guys' relationship with their fathers, and a lot of what it feels like is people are writing themselves into the story. And I don't really have a major issue with the whole guys and fathers story. I think that's a really good job, but we're just getting a lot too much, or we are getting too much of people's personal feelings on this matter in the story, and I just don't like that in general, no matter how it's executed. So aside from that, that really hasn't happened in this book so much or too much so far. It's just I'm worried about that. I'm going to continue to pick it up, and if that happens, I'll surely talk about that. But aside from that, I really like what's going on so far, and it'll be fun to see where it goes. Ultimate Spider-Man number 6, the conclusion of Spider-Man's origin. Thank goodness this arc has come to an end. I love most of Jonathan Hickman's work, but this version of Spider-Man is not hitting the mark for me yet. The past 6 issues have been establishing Peter, his relationships, in this version of New York City for the new readers. And it has been a very slow build. In this Ultimate Universe, Peter Parker is a husband and a father without powers in the first issue. He gets one of the orbs from Tony Stark, which he uses, and he gets a Spider-Man suit, which is kind of symbiote, and for the first few issues it's black, and then he turns it into the red and blue version, the traditional version, after his daughter stumbles upon him coming home one night from a superhero escapade, and he confides in her, and she's the only one who knows at that point. And we also saw in the Secret Invasion books that Peter Parker not becoming Spider-Man was kind of the catalyst for the Maker undoing a lot of the superheroics in the Ultimate Universe. So it makes sense why Peter is kind of being given the focus that he's given in relation to his powers in the story. Like he's a very central part to all of it so far, and it's very fun to see that happen. He becomes Spider-Man over the course of the issues 2 to 6, and we watch as he kind of learns to balance this with the rest of his life, which he does a poor job of, as usual. And thankfully, by the end of it all, he tells the rest of his family, MJ and his son, that is. And it's really nice at the end to kind of see it all be wrapped up in the intro, because I guess this is just Spider-Man fatigue for me. I've seen Spider-Man's origin story so many times, and while this was a new origin story, and thank goodness he's married to MJ, it's very much everything that Peter Parker, the character, deserves and has deserved for a very long time. But it's just been a slow build for me. And in general, I'm kind of holding back my judgment on the story so far. I do like a lot of what's going on. It's just, I'm pretty darn biased about Spider-Man, and I acknowledge that. He's my favorite superhero. He's the first comics I picked up were Spider-Man comics, and in fact they were Ultimate Spider-Man comics back when those were first coming out. So I have a good bit of exposure to him, and I need to be cognizant of that. But aside from that, I really do enjoy a lot of what's going on so far. It's just the one thing I don't enjoy about this book has nothing to do with the story elements or the character elements. It's the writing, which is Hickman has this tendency to do this thing in a lot of stories where he does time jumping. He doesn't tell the story in a linear fashion. And that works really well for kind of big, grandiose stories like the Secret Wars stories or what he did in Avengers and New Avengers. But with Peter Parker or Spider-Man, that doesn't really work. It needs to be linear. And what really peeved me is in this last issue, number 6, the story opens with him talking to his family, and he's beaten, bruised, and battered. And they're asking him what's going on. He tries to lie. His daughter exposes him accidentally, and she's a young girl, so, not really her fault, and he acknowledges that. And he comes clean to his family, and in coming clean, we get to see what happened the night before, which is he fought with Kingpin. Pretty cool fight, but we know, just based upon how the story was set up, that the fight is kind of low stakes. And just in that, it's something that didn't really hurt Peter. He's at breakfast the next day, chilling with his family, having breakfast, not really, too worried. And so obviously nothing major happened in the fight. And so this non-linear fashion kind of decreases the tension sometimes. And with Spider-Man, I think it's just best to do a B, C, D kind of thing. We'll see if this is kind of what happens moving forward. But aside from that, I'm excited to be excited about a Spider-Man comic book. It's been a long time. If anybody has kept up with the 616, he's been treated pretty poorly, and a pretty good way to understand when a character has a problem, especially at Marvel, is when they have a lot of titles. The last time this happened was in the 90s. There was a huge increase in titles for certain characters, the X-Men especially at this time, and it diluted the market, and it kind of ruined the X-Men in a way. And in the 2000s, the X-Men, they had some issues, and there was a lot of cool stuff in there, but it created an issue for the characters. And right now, we have 8 titles that are Spider-Man related. There's Amazing Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Spider-Boy, Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider, Spider-Woman, Superior Spider-Man, and the limited series Symbiote Spider-Man. And then there's going to be 3 more limited series that are Spider-Man books coming out. So that's a lot of Spider-Man. And like I said, that was a problem earlier in the 90s, and it's just that it dilutes things and it makes a problem. And not only that, the writing on the Spider-Man books have been abysmal in a lot of ways. You can go find tons of YouTube videos talking about that. I don't read those books anymore, sadly. Not because it's not sad because they're not good, but sad because they're not good. But aside from that, the Ultimates is kind of, in my idea, the last hope that I have in the Marvel Universe in a lot of ways. And it's not that it can turn the ship around, it's that there is still some quality books that are capable of coming out of Marvel. And aside from the Ultimate X-Men, it seems like all of the Ultimate books have been proving that. And so I really hope, not highly, that this all works out for the company, but if not, then it's very clear that Marvel has just become an IP farm. I can understand people kind of abandoning Marvel and DC. I don't hold out hope that this is all going to work out. DC books, I only keep up with the main event stories, the big crossovers. I really like kind of giant history being told. And Marvel, I only pick up a few titles that I like, and I'm mainly just on Ultimates now. But honestly, I'm not going to be too disappointed if all of this goes to poo, because I have a bunch of other independent comic books that I have been reading and am very excited about. In fact, another video that I'm going to be doing is going to be at the beginning I talked about it, a recap of the recent Spawn, 350 through 354. I really am excited about that one. It's an awesome comic book, and I really want to go into a little bit finer depth on what's going on with that. Aside from that, that is This Week in Comics. Thanks for checking in.